Hollywood legends aren't always best friends behind the scenes. You see them on the red carpet smiling, shaking hands, but what you don't always see is the drama, the tension, the stuff that makes for a great story later on. It's true, some of the most iconic movie pairings were actually fueled by some serious off-screen friction. Think about it, you put two incredibly talented, passionate, and sometimes very different people in a high-pressure situation, and sparks are bound to fly. It's like putting two Mentos in a Coke bottle, but with more Oscars. And when you talk about Hollywood legends who aren't afraid to speak their mind, one name absolutely comes to mind: Robert Duvall. This guy's an icon, a titan of the silver screen, from The Godfather to Lonesome Dove. He's given us some of the most memorable performances in film history, but he's also known for being incredibly candid, brutally honest, and he doesn't suffer fools gladly. He tells it like it is, no filter, which is why we love him, right? He's the real deal. So what happens when you combine that outspoken personality with some of the biggest names in the business? You get some legendary stories, that's what. And trust me, these stories are wild. Today, we're counting down the top 5 actors Robert Duvall reportedly hated working with. You might want to grab some popcorn for this one because it's about to get juicy. Let's get into it. Kicking off our list at number 5 is the one and only Dustin Hoffman. Now this is a clash of titans, folks. We're talking about two of the most respected actors of their generation. The movie was Kramer vs. Kramer, that gut-wrenching 1979 classic that won a ton of awards, including Best Picture. It was a huge hit, a cultural phenomenon even. But behind the scenes, oh boy, it was apparently less Kramer versus Kramer and more Hoffman versus Duvall. The main issue, from what everyone says, was their completely different approaches to the craft of acting. Hoffman is a famous method actor. He lives the part, he breathes the part, he is the part. He wants to feel everything his character is feeling right there in the moment. It's an intense process, and he's known for pushing boundaries to get an authentic reaction from his co-stars. You've probably heard the stories about him and Meryl Streep on that same set. Duvall, on the other hand, comes from a different school of thought. He's more of a learn your lines, hit your mark, and tell the truth kind of guy. He believes in preparation, of course, but he also believes in professionalism and not making the set a living nightmare for everyone else. So you have Hoffman, who is reportedly trying to provoke real emotions on set, and Duvall, who just wants to do the scene. According to reports, Hoffman would do things to try and get under Duvall's skin, to get a rise out of him before a take. We're talking about little jabs, comments, things to throw him off his game. But Duvall was not having it, not even a little bit. He saw it as unprofessional and disrespectful. He even told a story about how Hoffman once tried to get a reaction out of him by slapping him for real before a scene. Duvall, being the cool customer he is, supposedly just looked at him and said something along the lines of, "If you do that again, I'm gonna knock you on your butt." Can you imagine? It's like a scene from a whole different movie happening right there on set. The irony is that their on-screen chemistry as friends is actually pretty believable. That's the magic of acting, I guess. They were able to put their personal feelings aside long enough for the cameras to roll and create something memorable. Alright, coming in at number 4, we're revving our engines and heading to the racetrack with Mr. Mission Impossible himself, Tom Cruise. The film was 1990's Days of Thunder, you know, the one Cole Trickle, NASCAR, Nicole Kidman, the whole deal. It was basically Top Gun on wheels. And on screen, Robert Duvall played Harry Hogg, the veteran crew chief who mentors Cruise's hotshot young driver, a classic teacher-student dynamic. Behind the scenes, though, the dynamic was reportedly a lot more tense. Now, this wasn't a case of on-set slapping or method-acting madness like with Hoffman. This was a clash of work ethics and on-set power. Tom Cruise, even back in 1990, was a superstar, a massive, bankable, A-list star who had a lot of creative control over his projects. He wasn't just the lead actor, he was the driving force behind the movie. Duvall, the seasoned veteran, the Oscar winner, walked onto a set that was very much the Tom Cruise show. Cruise was known for his incredible energy, his perfectionism, and his desire to do things over and over and over again until they were absolutely perfect in his eyes. He's famous for his work ethic, right? The guy is a machine. He wants to get every shot, every angle, every line delivery just right. This, apparently, did not sit well with Robert Duvall. Duvall is a pro's pro. He comes in prepared, he knows his character, he delivers a killer performance in a few takes, and he's ready to move on. So you have this friction, Cruise, the young star, wanting to control every aspect and do endless takes. Duvall, the old guard, feeling like his time was being wasted. Duvall has described the experience as working with a pod. He said it felt like Cruise and his whole entourage, the producers, the writers, were all in this little bubble, and it was hard to break through. He felt like an outsider on his own set. In his typical, brutally honest fashion, Duvall has talked about this in interviews. He never insults Cruise's talent or his success. He's very clear about that, but he talks about the work style. It's a clash of generations in a way. The old Hollywood way versus the new blockbuster star as producer system. Think about their scenes together. Duvall is the wise, grounded mentor, and Cruise is the cocky kid. It's art imitating life, or maybe life imitating art. That tension you see on screen might have been more real than any of us knew at the time. Ultimately, like with Kramer versus Kramer, the movie was a hit, and their performances are a big reason why. Alright, moving on to number 3 on our list of actors Robert Duvall did not enjoy working with. This one is less about a specific on-set clash and more about a general and very public disapproval. We're talking about the intense and often controversial two-time Oscar winner Sean Penn. These two worked together on the 1988 film Colors, a gritty cop drama directed by Dennis Hopper. Now you would think these guys would get along, right? Both are known for their serious, no-nonsense approach to acting. They are titans of dramatic performance. They both bring an incredible level of intensity and authenticity to their roles. Colors was a tough, realistic movie about gang violence in Los Angeles, and both actors were phenomenal in it. Duvall played the veteran cop, and Penn was his young, hot-headed partner. But any camaraderie they might have had on screen definitely did not translate off-screen, at least not in the long run. Over the years, Robert Duvall has been openly critical of Sean Penn, not just as a person, but of his whole demeanor. It seems to stem from a fundamental difference in how they view themselves and their place in the world. Duvall, for all his honesty, is a pretty humble guy. He's a craftsman. He sees acting as a job, a skill he has honed over decades. He's proud of his work, but he doesn't seem to carry himself with an air of self-importance. He's a guy who loves tango dancing and football. He's grounded. Sean Penn, on the other hand, has a reputation for being, well, Sean Penn. He's incredibly serious about his work, but also about his politics, his activism, and his public image. He has often been portrayed in the media as being brooding, intense, and perhaps taking himself a little too seriously. Whether that's fair or not, that's the perception. And it's a perception that Robert Duvall seems to share. In interviews, Duvall has called Penn a great actor, but has immediately followed it up with criticism of his attitude. One of Duvall's most famous quotes on the subject is, "I don't have a lot of respect for Sean Penn. I think he's a fine actor, but he's a jackass. Ouch." He didn't say we had creative differences. He didn't say he's a bit difficult. He just came right out and said it. That's the unfiltered Duvall we're talking about. There's no ambiguity there. This isn't just a one-time comment either. He's reiterated this sentiment on multiple occasions. He seems to genuinely dislike Penn's public persona. It's a clash of personalities and philosophies, the pragmatic craftsman versus the passionate and sometimes volatile artiste. It's the old school versus the new school of Hollywood intensity. So while their on-screen partnership in Colors was electric and felt incredibly real, that tension between the old-timer and the young buck, it was likely fueled by a genuine personality clash. Coming in at the number 2 spot is an actor you probably wouldn't expect to see on a list like this. He's one of the most beloved, quirky, and enigmatic figures in Hollywood. We're talking about the one, the only Bill Murray. The film was the 2009 indie darling Get Low, a fantastic movie where Duvall plays a reclusive hermit who wants to throw his own funeral party while he's still alive. Bill Murray plays the funeral home director who has to make it happen. On paper, this sounds like a dream team. Robert Duvall, the dramatic heavyweight. Bill Murray, the master of deadpan comedy and surprising pathos. Sissy Spacek was in it too. It's a powerhouse cast. And the movie is wonderful, a really touching and funny story. But the process of making it, at least for Duvall, was apparently a bit of a challenge. The issue here wasn't ego or meanness. It was, once again, a fundamental clash of acting styles. Robert Duvall, as we've established, is a preparer. He does his homework, he knows his lines, he knows his character's motivations, and he comes to set ready to deliver a precise, truthful performance. He is a builder, constructing his character brick by brick. Bill Murray is not that. Bill Murray is a jazz musician of acting. He's famous for his improvisational style. He likes to show up and see what happens. He riffs, he plays, he throws curveballs at his scene partners to keep things fresh and unpredictable. He's looking for happy accidents, those spontaneous moments of magic that you can't plan for. Many actors love working with him for this very reason. It keeps you on your toes. Robert Duvall is not one of those actors. He found Murray's approach to be unsettling and at times unprofessional. Imagine you've spent weeks preparing for a very specific emotional scene. You know exactly what you want to do. And then you get on set, and your scene partner starts going off script, throwing in jokes or changing his lines right in the middle of a take. For an actor like Duvall, that's chaos. It throws off his rhythm, his concentration. He's trying to build a serious, dramatic moment, and Murray is treating it like a sandbox. In interviews about the film, Duvall has been very diplomatic but clear about his discomfort. He's called Murray a very strange guy, and has talked about how you never know what he's going to do next. He told one story about how they were about to shoot a scene, and right before the director yelled, "Action!" Murray whispered something completely random and bizarre in his ear. It was meant to be playful, to loosen him up, but for Duvall, it was just distracting. He was there to work, to get into the mindset of this lonely hermit, and Murray was doing improv comedy. Duvall has said, "I like to have a script and work off the script." He respects the writers and the structure they've created. Murray, on the other hand, sees the script as more of a suggestion, a starting point for exploration. It's two completely opposite ways of finding the truth in a scene, one through discipline, the other through freedom. Again, there's no indication of a big screaming match. It was more of a quiet professional frustration. The final performances are brilliant, and you can even see that tension work for the characters. Duvall's hermit is rigid and set in his ways, while Murray's funeral director is this quirky, unpredictable force that comes into his life. It works beautifully. And here we are, the #1 spot. The actor that Robert Duvall reportedly had the most complicated and frustrating relationship with. This is the big one, folks. We're going back to the set of one of the greatest films ever made, The Godfather. And we're talking about the legend himself, Marlon Brando. This feud is the stuff of Hollywood lore. Now, to be clear, Robert Duvall worshipped Marlon Brando as an actor. Brando was the guy who changed everything. He was a hero to Duvall's entire generation of actors, including guys like James Caan and Al Pacino. They all looked up to him. When Duvall was cast as Tom Hagen, the Corleone family's consigliere, the chance to work with his idol, Marlon Brando, was a dream come true. But as the old saying goes, never meet your heroes. The reality of working with Brando in the 1970s was very, very different from the dream. Brando was at a strange point in his career. He was still a genius, but he had also become famously difficult, eccentric, and unpredictable. He had a reputation for not learning his lines, for being a prankster, and for generally not taking the whole process very seriously. This drove Robert Duvall absolutely insane. Here he was, on the set of this masterpiece, pouring his heart and soul into the role of Tom Hagen, and the lead actor, Don Corleone himself, was treating it like a joke. The most famous source of tension was Brando's refusal to memorize his lines. He insisted on using cue cards, which would be placed all over the set, sometimes even taped to other actors' chests. For Duvall, a consummate professional who valued preparation above all else, this was the ultimate sign of disrespect. It was lazy. It was unprofessional. And then, there were the pranks. Brando was a notorious prankster. During the famous wedding scene, there was apparently a mooning contest between Brando and James Caan. They were literally dropping their pants for laughs. Duvall, trying to stay in character as the serious, level-headed Tom Hagen, was just appalled. He was there to make art. They were at a frat party. Duvall has told stories about how he would get so frustrated he would just have to walk away. He couldn't deal with the lack of discipline. He respected Brando's talent immensely. He's always said that when the cameras were rolling, Brando was magical, but the process to get there was infuriating. It was a constant battle between his admiration for Brando the artist and his disdain for Brando the professional. This complicated relationship created a fascinating dynamic. You had Duvall, the ultimate professional, playing the loyal advisor to Brando, the ultimate loose cannon, who was playing the powerful, controlled Don. It was a complete reversal of their off-screen personas. That tension is palpable in their scenes together. When Tom Hagen is trying to reason with the Don, maybe that's really Duvall trying to reason with Brando. So there you have it. From method madness to on-set mooning, a look at 5 legendary actors who reportedly drove the great Robert Duvall up the wall. It just goes to show you, creating movie magic isn't always a walk in the park. It's a high-pressure, high-stakes business, and when you get these incredible, passionate, and very different personalities in a room together, you're not always going to get harmony. Sometimes you get friction, frustration, and some absolutely legendary stories. What's so fascinating about Duvall is his unwavering commitment to the work. Whether he was dealing with improvisers, pranksters, or control freaks, he always showed up and delivered a powerful, honest performance. He never let the off-screen drama derail his on-screen integrity, and that's the mark of a true professional. He's a legend for a reason, and his willingness to speak his mind honestly, for better or worse, just makes us respect him even more. These stories aren't just gossip, they're a peek behind the curtain at the artistic process. They show that conflict and collaboration are two sides of the same coin. Even the greatest actors have their limits. Let us know in the comments which Hollywood feud surprised you the most. Was it the unpredictable Bill Murray, the legendary Marlon Brando? We want to hear what you think. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood history. Thanks for watching.